Hello, I'm Jacquelyn Doggette, and you are watching Actor Chat, where I chat with actors and people in actor-adjacent careers to talk about what life in the entertainment industry is really like. Today's guest is an actor and a filmmaker who's created a multifaceted career for himself. So if you want a behind-the-scenes look into independent filmmaking, keep watching.
Hello, my name is Romel Rose. I am a director, filmmaker, actor here in Los Angeles, and I'm excited about this conversation.
All of your titles and all the things you're doing, where did all of this come from? What or who inspired you to make your career in the entertainment industry?
I don't know where it came from. My second year of college is when I discovered acting. It more so came from a fear that I felt like I had. Like I had stage fright. Like I had fear of public speaking. I had fear of being in front of large groups of people. So a friend of mine was taking an improv class. At the time, I was like watching all these inspirational Will Smith videos about just attacking fear. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna implement that in my life and I'm gonna attack fear. Then I started studying the craft and learning. You know, because in high school, I was always basketball oriented. Basketball was always the outlet for me to release and for me to kind of like, it was like therapeutic for me. So I learned how to translate that into acting, into the characters. And so once I discovered that, it was off and running for me.
You said that you continued working on your craft. What did you do from there? Did you do independent classes? How did you go about finding a way to get more training?
I was going to Cal State University of Bakersfield at the time, but we didn't have a film program. We just had a theater program. So I was taking all these theater classes, and simultaneously, it's crazy how things were working because I was working as a background actor on set of these like TV shows like Disney and all these shows, but I wasn't doing it wanting to be an actor. I was doing it for the money because my friend told me that this was a way to get paid, and we were broke, fresh out of our freshman year of college. I remember I was on set for this TV show, and I met this young woman, and she was telling me about acting classes that she was taking, and it kind of ties in because at the time I was, like I said, I was watching all these Will Smith inspirational videos, and she said, yeah, I studied with Will Smith's acting coach. Where are these acting classes? And so I did a bunch of research, and I was super intimidated because I was like, oh, these are real working actors that take these classes. I wasn't gonna let that stop me. I was like, I'm gonna take this head on, even if I'm scared to do it.
Has acting as a career been what you thought it would be?
Absolutely not. What? I got a reality check the first year. I didn't understand the stereotypical images. I didn't understand the fact that this industry isn't built for people who look like us. Auditioning and, you know, casting directors telling me that they wanted me to be or sound more whitewashed, and I didn't even know what whitewash meant. I mean, I know what that means on a surface level, but to see people who don't look like us kind of view us, and people who look like us kind of try to cater to those demographics in a stereotypical way, I was just like, wow, like this is crazy. It really kind of messed me up. So no, to answer your question, it was not what I expected. I thought you could just train, be the best actor that you could be, and opportunities will come, but it was the opposite. It was like, it's almost like you have to work, in my opinion, I just feel like you have to work 10 times harder than your other counterparts in order to even get an opportunity, which is super unfortunate.
This may seem like I'm switching gears, but it's all related. As actors today, anyway, we're constantly told, like, make your own content, make your own content, make your own content. And we're given a variety of reasons why we should do it. You have made a ton of content. What is your personal reason for making independent projects?
Basically what I said earlier, like the opportunities as an actor, I just wasn't getting. In hindsight, I probably wasn't ready, but at the time it was like, I thought I was because I was training. I'm more so like solution based. Like I'm not gonna just complain about something or just stay in a situation that I'm not happy with. Like I've always been like that. This was no different. Like I was just unhappy with the opportunity, the lack of opportunities, and I was auditioning and I was getting callbacks, I was getting pinned for roles and I wasn't booking it. I created a story and I knew how I wanted to tell it, and I just did it, and I put it online, and people responded well to it. So that gave me a lot of confidence to like continue to tell our stories. And this is a long-winded answer, I'm sorry, but I also saw the movie Fruitvale Station, and that was the first time that I saw a character that I 100% identify with. When I saw that movie, I said, oh, we can do that? Like, I can actually put myself, like characters like me that I grew up with, that I know, on film. I never knew. I always tried, because when I first started, I was always trying to conform and be something that I felt like they wanted me to be. So when I saw that movie, I said, that changed my life. I was like, oh, I can do that. Like, I can put characters that I know and that I identify with on screen, and that's cool.
That's such a transformative moment. I knew that, because I know you, I knew you were really influenced by that movie, but hearing you describe it as the moment when you realized that you could be on screen, like your authentic self, who you are, could be on screen, that's dope.
And I get chills talking about it, because it's like, that's truly what it was. It was like, it unleashed me to be like, oh, I could be myself. And Anthony always teaches that in the class, like, your uniqueness and being yourself. But being a black kid, being a black young man, I didn't believe that shit. I'm like, that's not true, because when I go in these rooms, they don't want me to be myself. They want me to, so I always struggle with that. But once I saw that movie, it kind of, that's why I'm so unapologetic now of just being myself. And it makes people uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, I'm like, no, I'm gonna be myself, because this is what makes me unique. Like, nobody else could do this, what I'm doing, because it's me. So I just be myself.
You started talking a little bit about your first project. Dig into that a little bit. Like, what was it like actually putting your story together and making the project?
My first project, I was talking about this yesterday, it was just so innocent and raw, because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And it's my favorite because of that. I didn't even know that there was a director of photography and then a director. I was like, yo, my boy, let's shoot this. We're both directing it. I didn't know the technicalities of stuff, but it was inspired, like I said, by Fruitvale Station. That film changed my life. And there was a specific scene in that movie where Oscar, the main character, he meets a pit bull at a gas station. And when I first watched the scene, when I first watched the movie, I didn't understand the scene. I said, why, this is a random scene. Why is this scene in here? So I did some research. I said, who made this movie? And it was a kid from Oakland, man, and he wasn't too much older than me. And that also inspired me, like, oh, like, people my age are doing this. He explained the concept and the metaphor behind the scene about how young black men, we are America's pit bull. We're often labeled as violent, vicious, inhumane, and left to die in the street. And the scene also has so many layers, because the scene foreshadows what is to happen to Oscar at the end of the film. So I just thought that was so brilliant. And I was like, wow, that's what filmmaking is. Like, I just couldn't believe he did that. So I made my own version of what America's pit bull meant to me, because at the time my brother was in the Marines. He had just had his first baby. He was married. And I just thought it was really interesting how this young man is like serving our country, but if he puts on a hoodie, he's completely looked at as something different. And I casted him. I said, hey man, I have this idea. Do you want to be in this? And we told it in chronological order. So, because I didn't know about scheduling and all that stuff. So we told everything in order, and I just really was able to pull performance out of him, and it resonated with people.
Well, I've seen the project, and it's done so well. Just the pure storytelling of it, the way you shot it, it was done really, really well.
Thank you.
When I think of you, I of course think of you as a filmmaker almost primarily now. Is that how you think of yourself? Do you still think of making independent projects as part of your acting career, or has it evolved into something separate and different?
It's evolved, but not separate. It's all intertwined. I definitely look at myself as a filmmaker and a storyteller versus just an actor now. Like, acting is cool, but I'm not in control of that. But storytelling, I'm in control. I can tell this story. Yeah, I look at it as both. It's not so much separate, but I do think that the filmmaking, since I have more leverage in that and I have more, I guess, control in it, it takes on a life of its own, because I have like 8 that I've done, and like I said, like, I can control the distribution of those versus like you go into an audition or a self-tape and you just have to leave it there on the floor, which is super hard because you get emotionally invested. Especially we don't talk about this enough, but people say don't get like just leave it, like let like kind of forget about it, the audition. But if I really tapped in and I'm emotionally invested the way that we're trained to do, how could you just leave it and not care? Like, it's so hard to do, and that it's super dangerous. And we don't talk about it enough, how dangerous this stuff that we do is, because we do get emotionally invested into these characters. And for me, it's hard to just let it go and not care about it. And then when somebody else get cast, like, just be happy. Like, oh yeah, like, no, I put my heart in that. No. Sorry, I'm a little triggered.
Well, now that you are, like you said, you've done 8 projects. I can't even believe 8. Romel, that's so many projects.
That's so interesting that people like say that, because like, since I'm super proud of that, but I'm kind of like, I want to make a feature. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to make 8 more. So it's just like it's interesting. But then you also look around and you just have to celebrate that. Well, for me, I have to learn to celebrate it, because I'm so like on the next thing. But you have to learn to celebrate it, because that's not something that is easy to do. Even though I did it,
no,
it's not easy to do, and I have to remember like to celebrate that. Sometimes like you get so caught up in like what's next. So thank you. That's super dope.
Now that you have more of a grasp on the production process, there's pre-production and production and post-production. What is your I'll start with least favorite. What is your least favorite stage of production and why?
My least favorite is between writing and editing.
Okay. So pre and post.
Those are 2 tedious parts of the process that I don't enjoy, because we talk about writing, right? Like, writing is rewriting. Like, no matter how solid you think your script is, somebody's going to have some notes for you. And there's always that little punctuation error somewhere in the script. It's just like it's never perfect. That's the hard part for me, like communicating this on the page. Like, I know what I mean, but to somebody else who has a totally different experience growing up and who has a totally different mind, they might receive this a different way. So I have to figure out ways of communicating my vision in 90 pages, which is not easy to do.
Yeah.
Super tedious. Least favorite part of the process.
So then I take it your favorite part is production.
I don't know. I've never thought about this before, but what just came to me is like, I think the favorite part is knowing the impact you have on somebody's like life. You know what I'm saying? That's why I feel a responsibility, to tell our stories in a positive light and show and just tell stories that I care about, because we have opportunity to change lives. You know what I'm saying? We have like how Fruitvale changed my life. If I can have that same impact on somebody, then I feel like that's a win. And that's purpose, right? So I think my favorite part is, knowing the impact that I might have on somebody's life. I don't know if that's a part of the process, but that's what brings me joy. Like, and that's what keeps me going. Like, sometimes I need those words of affirmations, like to like let people, like for people to let me know, like, yo, like I watched your film and it really meant a lot. That was like, oh, okay, like it gives me kind of fuel to be like, all right, let me make the next one. You know what I'm saying? Because it might can help somebody. It's less about me and more so about what am I doing in life, like how am I serving others within my art. So I think that's the part of the process, because we could talk about production, like that's a whole other stressful part. It's like actually filming it, actually making sure that my actors, or that if I'm an actor, like making sure that I am in this specific moment. Like, it's not easy to do. People think like, oh, just learn lines. Like, no, you have to know where your character is in this moment, in this particular world. You have to be emotionally available in this moment. And not only do you have to know these kind of things, you have to forget all of that and live in this moment. It's not easy to do.
How do you even start a project knowing everything that goes into it?
I always start off with an outline. Okay, Gilardi always says, what story are we telling? And I really live by that. Like, yo, I won't do anything until I'm crystal clear on the story that I'm telling. Like, what story is this? So once I solidify the story, then I start to put the pieces together, try to create an outline that tells the story that I want to tell. And once I have an outline, then I can go to the script and write it. And then writing is rewriting, and then workshopping and figuring out what's working, what's not working. That's a whole part of, that's pre-production, you know, and and I don't go into pre-production until I have a solid script. Now I'm like looking for collaborators. Now I'm looking for people who I want to, you know, assemble a team together that could tell the story that I have. So then I go from finding collaborators that, you know, now I'm breaking down the script. Like, okay, I have these locations, and I can shoot these on these days. I can knock out these scenes because these all happen in the same location. And I try to minimize my days. Like, I try to get stuff done in like 2 to 3 days. So I try to shoot all the same scenes in the same location in the same day, so we can just knock out that day or that location. And I'm thinking about planning all this stuff before we go to the set. And so I'm collaborating with my DP. We go scout the locations, like, okay, how are we gonna shoot this? Like, this is how I envision the scene. How does this work in this space? And then he gives me ideas. Okay, we could shoot it like this, So we come up with a shot list. So now we have our schedule based off of the locations in the script, and we have a shot list, and we have to solidify these locations and our budget and all this kind of stuff, this tedious stuff, and then we're able to come up with shoot. Now you gotta, the hardest part in all that, you could do all that work, but then everyone's availability is the key. So now you have to reach out to everybody and make sure, okay, February 18th, are you guys available on this day at this time? And you gotta kind of just, it's like a puzzle. You gotta put all these pieces together before you actually go film. And what I've learned, 8 times out of 10, most independent filmmakers are not doing this kind of work, like, which is super unfortunate.
So it takes a lot of collaboration to make a project. You mentioned the DP and the cast and more crew, and you have to find locations and work with whoever has the location. How did you build that community that you have people to reach out to, or is it like cold calling every time, trying to find the right people every time?
Yeah, no, I definitely have a community of people that support me, and I really, I bank on that. And what I started doing, like I would say, like a couple years ago, was not focusing on the people who aren't supportive, and really just focusing on the people who are supportive. And without the support, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. Whether that's like the support that we have from our class, you know, I've always known. And that's another thing, that's another fortunate gift that I've had, is I've had a pool of actors to choose from, whether it was you, our other friends. Like, I never felt like I couldn't find like great actors. So that's always been an advantage that I had. Like, I was surrounded by friends who were great actors. Some people don't have access to that. You know what I mean? Some people didn't go to acting class for 8 years and know so many really dope actors. I've always been really big on like utilizing my resources, right? Like, people ask me all the time, like, hey, how do you find such and such? Like, I'm looking for a DP. I'm like, you can literally post on your social media asking for a DP, and people will tag hella DPs that, and you just message them and tell them what you have going on, ask to see their reels. Like, it's really that simple for me. Like, I utilize my resources and reach out to people. I'm not shy about, let's get some coffee, let's have a conversation. I tell you my vision, and either you're on board or you're not.
Now, we touched on this. People throw around, especially in our industry right now, they throw around the words representation and authentic storytelling a lot. And I say throw around not because I don't find it important. You know, it's very important to me. But people, I believe, are saying it for a variety of reasons and have a variety of interpretations of what that really means. Why is it important for people to see someone like you on screen and for someone like you to be behind the scenes in storytelling? Boom.
I feel a true responsibility to tell our stories but not just tell our stories, right? Like tell it in a in an honorable way with integrity. I'm not seeing that happen a lot. Like even like I'm seeing we get opportunities sometimes to tell these stories, and it's a like I see a lot of stories about our trauma and no light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm like, no, we have trauma, but we also have laughter, we have joy, we have positive things about us. So I feel a strong responsibility. Like stories like we just saw Judas, right? Like those stories are cool, but we know what happens to our hero. Like where are our stories that we don't die at the end? Where are our stories that, because what I'm really big on messaging too. Like what messages are we sending each other? What messages, like, okay, if we stand up and we're revolutionary, we're gonna die. Like we all like that story needs to be told, right? But what about these other stories? And I'm interested in these other stories. You know what I mean? So I just feel a huge responsibility, and I know that this is a road less traveled, and it's going to be very difficult. But God wouldn't have put it on my heart if it wasn't for me to do. So
that makes a lot of sense, because I think part of the issue of the lack of representation, obviously there's an issue, but one of the biggest things that frustrates me about a lack of representation is, you're right, our stories aren't shown with the full range of human experience. The focus, like you said, is on negative things or on trauma, when you will see white people, you'll see
they make stories about anything.
Yes, the full range of experience. Yes, you have villains. Yes, you have trauma stories. But then, yes, you also have just pure comedic relief, or you see family stories, or you see just a range of experience. And I'm like, that's human experience. That's not unique to a culture or an ethnicity. Human experience is all of it. We experience all of it. So it's really important to me to see that on screen, because at the end of the day, it's marketing. Like at the end of the day, if all anyone else sees of us on screen is trauma and negativity, that's what they think of us. If they don't have an experience with us on a regular basis, that's all they see. That's marketing. That's what they think we are. And I'm like, we're so much more. We are human beings.
And on the flip side of that, we can get pigeonholed in that too. Like, oh, tell these stories about the Black experience, right? But I'm a storyteller. I can tell many different stories. Don't just pigeonhole me in that. And like, I see a lot of people in our community too, like, they'll be like, well, why did you tell this story? Or why is a white man the lead? I'm like, well, it's not about him being white necessarily. It's like, yo, Nick inspired this story and this character, so I casted Nick and I told this story. Like I am a storyteller. I don't have to just tell about the Black experience. Like that's important. Don't get me wrong. Like I'll never not tell about the Black experience, but don't just pigeonhole me into that specific kind of storytelling. That bothers me as well.
And frankly, whatever you do, you're a Black man. You're coming from a perspective that is unique because of who you are. No matter what story you tell.
No one says anything when Steven Spielberg makes The Color Purple. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yo, I can make Jurassic Park.
That's what I mean. That like, I think true representation is freedom of expression and story. Like true representation is, I can be in this story as anything, focused on any topic, and I can tell this story as a storyteller on any topic, because my perspective on these things matters. And that should just be inherent, because it is inherent for some people. It's automatic for some people that their opinion matters. I think having your perspective matter is important.
Right, 100%.
So what advice would you tell someone who wants to make their unique voice heard in film and television and does not know where to begin?
I would say study the craft, watch a lot of movies, because then you'll start to figure out what you resonate with, and you'll start to develop a voice. What worked for me may not work for you, and just understanding that, you know what I'm saying? Like you are a completely different human being and individual. So giving yourself grace and giving yourself the patience to learn what your voice is, what your purpose is in this whole situation. It took me a while to figure it out. I started off, like I said, as an actor and then transitioned into filmmaking. It didn't happen overnight, and I'm still on the journey. So giving yourself grace and know that it won't happen overnight. And if it does happen overnight, there's something wrong.
And I like what you did. When you decided to make a film, your first film, you picked up a camera and you just did it. You had studied the craft and you knew a lot about storytelling, but you didn't feel like you needed years of education on camera operating and on all these things, because that comes with experience. So you gave yourself the experience by doing it.
Yeah, I didn't have the luxury of going to film school or anything like that. I had acting class, and not to say that I don't feel that way. Like sometimes I do feel like, man, I want to learn. Like I need to know, but just knowing that you don't need to know those things in order to tell a story. You might feel like you do, but always have that in you. Like, okay, let me utilize what I do know. I know that I can tell this story. There was more that I felt like I could do versus I couldn't. So just really just trusting yourself, and that's what we're taught to do, trust, right? So it was just like, I have to do it, or otherwise it won't get done. And the biggest thing that will separate you is doing it, because people respect that, especially in this industry. Like, it's so hard to complete something. So once you do that, you garner respect of your peers. Because 9 times out of 10, most people aren't completing the work, and they're not even doing it. They'll talk about it. Like, oh, I have an idea. Oh, yeah. Like, okay, everybody has ideas, but when you actually execute it and do it, even if it's trash, people will respect that. And that's what I try to tell people. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, complete it. Because even when I see something, and even if like I didn't really like, it wasn't my favorite, the fact that you did it, like, I respect that. Because I know how hard it is to complete something. And we're filmmakers, we know that. We know that it's not easy to do it. So that's the easiest way to get respect, is just to complete your work.
Well, in conclusion, what are you working on now? Where can people find your work?
Yeah, so if you go to my YouTube, Romel Rose, everything is on that platform. I have 2 projects that I released recently in 2020. John, which is a short film. It's about 10 minutes long. It's about a man seeking love and validation. I have a documentary, which is kind of a visual diary. It's about 23 minutes. It documents my recovery process with shingles and Bell's palsy. It's called Fighting Bell's Palsy. So yeah, those are 2 projects that I have right now. And yeah, the next projects, I have 2 features that I'm trying to get made in the near future. But yeah, that's just working, trying to figure out the next opportunity that presents itself, and also creating my own opportunities simultaneously. So yeah, that's what I have going on.
Well, I'm excited to see what you have coming up next. I have enjoyed your work to date, so I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for joining me on Actor Chat.
Thank you for giving me this platform. I really appreciate it, and I'm super proud of you for doing this. This is amazing, and you're killing it. I've seen the growth. I've seen when you first started this, and to see what it's become now. This is super amazing, and I'm honored to be on this show with you, and I thank you. For sure.
Oh, thank you, Romel. A big thank you to Romel for chatting with me. Check out his portfolio of work, including some of the projects we talked about today, by way of the links in the description box below. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave those in the comment section. See you next time.